question to ask you. How powerful do you believe yourself to be?
Very.
Do I hear any answers?
Very powerful.
Very powerful. Okay, how many people doubt their own power? And it's okay, nobody's going to tell if you say you don't have it or you think you don't. Okay, that's cool. Marianne Williamson, how many of you heard of her? She's a wonderful poet, and she has written a poem that puts it this way. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Well, actually, who are you not to be that? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are born to make manifest the glory of God within us. It is not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. That's a powerful statement. That quote by Marianne Williamson is one of the most powerful comments on a different way to look at the human condition that has ever been written. She is talking to each and every one of us when she says that we, me, you, and all of you back there, are powerful beings. Unfortunately, what most of us lose sight of in this concept, when it comes to ourselves, what we think of each of ourselves, how we move through our lives. The concept that we have our own place of power within us and that we can access it in this lifetime is something that most of us, well, we don't really even think about it. And if we do, we just think it's not possible. I mean, what's going on in the world today? How many places do I have to be torn? How much interesting points of view do I have to watch on the television these days? Right? We haven't yet seen ourselves as inherently powerful beings, but rather as any of the 100 or so other labels that we or somebody else has chosen to put on us. And then when we look at what's going on the television, it's like, I'm just going to shrink away here and go hide in a corner until this is all over. But sometimes the place where our power resides within us is covered over with layers of our own stuff, quote unquote stuff, right? Which defines our lives and makes it hard to find our power. Well, where does this stuff come from? I mean, how many times have you heard remarks that feel like put-downs from people that you were supposed to be in respect with or that you thought loved you? Thoughtless statements tossed out by parents, other family members, or teachers, or fear statements by people who saw your power and were frightened by it and tried to shut you down, or ran in the other direction when all you were trying to do was help. Think about how many times in this lifetime have you been the object of a negative statement, and how many times have you taken it in and believed it? How many times have you used your power for what you perceived as good, or what appeared to be, well, maybe not for good, and you have been either misunderstood, tortured, made to suffer, even killed for it? This is also part of your stuff. If you believe in past lives, and I do, some of this has happened in other lifetimes, and you're playing it back over and over again in this lifetime. A pattern, though, begins to emerge here. Does it feel like a lack of self-power, a disconnect from the divine source or your angels and guides? Or is it really a general feeling of not being able to get back to the power that is you, who you really are? Each one of us has our own patterns of disempowerment. Carolyn Miss, some of you may know who she is, in her book Archetypes and Sacred Contracts, has a name for some of these patterns. She calls some of them the victim, the prostitute, the saboteur, and the child. I believe that there are more. The princess, the outlaw, the mother, the gambler, the controller, and many others whose patterns keep us from recognizing and owning our own true sense of power. But all of these are learned responses that we assumed in order to cope with what was really being done and really being said to us. This is not who we really are. As we just heard in the song, there is only one power, and it fills us with light. Have you ever heard the term, the Christed one? A Christed being? Has anybody ever heard those terms? Yes, Jesus, of course, was the Christ. But the word Christed one doesn't just pertain to Jesus. There have been many who have held the light of the divine within them. Buddha, Krishna, Abraham, Moses, Kuan Yin, Mary the Mother, Mary Magdalene, and many others are said to hold the light of Christ, or God, within them. The divine universal being, God, Goddess, all it is, whatever name feels right to you, needs us right now to step up and become co-creators with him or her or it. It is time for all of us to recognize our beingness with the divine and say yes to using our power for the highest good for all of the life on this planet, all of the time. So when Jesus said, "Whatever works that I do, so shall you do also, and more," who do you think he was talking to? Yeah, all of us, of course. Personal connection comes from the quiet time, not from the loud, boisterous behavior that we see and hear in the news. It comes in the quiet moments and the silence of yourself, when there is nothing between you and the divine. I find this personally when I go into nature, with the earth, when I have a quiet knowingness that God, Goddess, all that is, dwells in me and in everything. Every stone, every leaf, every molecule of water, and the earth herself. I focus that energy and power into what I am choosing to do at that moment, from healing myself to healing the planet. That is the place where my power resides, and where I can send it out to be of help and benefit to the world. Not by watching television and getting frenetic, not by reading the newspaper and getting even more upset, but going to a quiet place, be it a church, a sanctuary, the earth, and being present with the divine of my understanding. So as you watch what is going on in this country with the media, the governments, the terrorists, the homegrown, blah, 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 all of these, what I call interesting points of view, because I don't want to give them power. They're just interesting points of view. Not mine, but interesting points of view. That's not personal power or personal connection talking. Personal connection comes from the divine and quiet assurance that there is one connection between us and the divine. That point of oneness is what gives our own personal sense of the power that dwells within us. And from that we can send that power into the world to heal, to bless, to benefit, with and for the highest good of all. No personal agenda or timing, just holding in our hearts that whatever we send out is for the highest good, and not trying to figure out what that highest good is. Just sending it out and trusting that it is going to be for the highest good of all concerned. Do I know what the highest good of all concerned is? No. Do you? Only the divine knows that. Only God knows that. But when we can pull that universal power through us, like we just did in that meditation, and send it out into the world whenever we see something on television that is just beyond the pale, sending that universal energy out to that situation with no outcome intended, just for the highest good of all, is incredibly powerful. And it gives us the ability to be a Christed one. Because what were all those Christed ones doing? They were simply using the energy of the divine for their work in the world and their walk in the world. And that's what we do too. So my first suggestion to you is you don't buy into the fear-mongering. Just stop. Just stop. Actively take a stand for good. See the divine working for the highest good in all things, even when we don't have no idea how this is going to come about. How do you do this? How do you connect with your power and use it for the highest good? Well, we just did that meditation. But there's another way as well. Meditate on the vision of one divine power of light that fills the entire universe and shines like the sun. Let's try this. Close your eyes. Let's try this for a moment. So I'd like you to create a vision of God's divine power, or the divine power of light, that fills the entire universe, shines like the sun, and blesses each living thing and every human that it touches. Visualize it pouring from the divine heart of oneness, God, Goddess, all that is, down into the top of your head. Continue it flowing down into your heart. And from there, flowing out into the world, filling up every place that there is contention or darkness. Feel the power of that light to heal and support with no assumptions of what's going to happen or where it's going, only for the highest good of all concerned. Because you are tapping into the divine light, you are not making this light yourself, you are not creating it. It is always available to you. And it always works, and it is always there. This works for the darkness and the world gone crazy moments that you see and read about, and you can open your eyes. Energy, powerful beyond measure. Energy of the divine. Energy of the cosmos and of Gaia, the earth. As you continue to remember to connect with the divine light, your power, your connection becomes stronger, more usable the more you use it, and the more you become divinely aware. Now let's take this a step further. Have I lost all of you? Are you guys with me? Okay. This is heady stuff, so let's take it a step further. James Redfield, in his book, The Secret of Shambhala, you know him from the, what was the name of that book? The first one, anybody remember that? Celestine Prophecy, thank you. He wrote a book called The Secrets of Shambhala, and he speaks about prayer field energy, the energy of the cosmos, and also your intuition, your knowingness that there is a power greater than you that you can tap into at any moment. I always visualize it just as we did as a shining sun, the galaxy, the heart of God, the Christed energy. Down through my head, down through my heart, and and then I send it out from my heart before me, ahead of me, as I walk or as I travel. These days things are a little bit dodgy, shall we say, for traveling, right? You never know who's in the bus with you or whatever. Send this prayer field energy out through the crown, down through the crown of your head and out ahead of you as you walk, and watch what change that happens. It's amazing. I used to live in New York City. Okay, that's enough of a challenge for anybody. I absolutely hated to go on the subway. The filth, the claustrophobia, the noise, to say nothing of the masses of humanity, were just more than I could handle. I'm an empath, so it was a little bit difficult. But when I began to work with this technique, I wondered if this would work on my feelings about riding on trains. So before I went down the subway stairs, I would stop and I would pull that energy in and send it out my heart and make it like a field of love energy before me and around me and behind me. And I'd go down the stairs and get into the train. And as I sat there, and I always got a seat when I did this, something miraculous started to happen. All of a sudden, the train car quieted. People became courteous to one another, offering people their seats. No pushing, no shoving. It became like something okay, what planet am I on now? But this was miraculous. And it worked the same way in the nursing home that my father used to be in. I would come home from the nursing home where he was covered in energy that didn't belong to me, and it was just not nice. So I started to do the same thing. Before I walked in the door of the nursing home, I would bring this energy in, send it out my heart, surround myself fully with it, walk in the doors. Oh, hi, Miss Steen, you're here to see your father. How lovely. He's in the solarium today. And I would go in, and there was my father, and he had dementia. And he never spoke, or didn't speak much, but when I walked in the room, he knew I was there. And he would pick his head up like this, and I would walk over, and I'd say, "Hi, Pop, how you doing?" "Oh, Deb, you came to see me today." "He talking to me? This is a miracle." And then he would proceed to tell me what I had done yesterday. Did I like the show I went to last night? Okay, my father has never been psychic in his entire life. And all of a sudden, he was tuning into a different level of energy than he had ever had before. And when he was conscious, of course, he never allowed that to come through. But the most important thing is that I could walk out of that nursing home and not have to take a hot shower and scrub myself. Because the energy, the divine energy that came through me, began to change the way the nurses took care of the people on that floor, the way the patients, most of them who couldn't speak or couldn't move, began to exhibit signs of life. It was really incredible. And so I began to see that this particular method of sending light out before me was for the highest good of all concerned and not just for my own protection. So I do this every single day when I find myself in a situation that is not necessarily what I can handle. So my basic thing is that when we identify and uncover the point of power within ourselves, we can never go back to being what we were before. When we get that taste of the personal connection and can call it up and will and use it for good, for the highest good of all concerned, there's no limit on how we can reshape our lives, our homes, our relationships, and ultimately our planet. This planet needs us badly. It's very important that we send energy and work with the planet as well. But we can all do this, even if you're not of the same religion, and even if you don't believe in higher power and you don't believe in God, or you think that it's something else. Consciously, we can send out this radiance each day and watch what happens. Things will start to change. It's an extraordinary change. So let us all be powerful beyond measure in all of the most divine and loving and whole ways that we can. We are the Christed ones. We are the ones that have been given this gift. We dwell within the Divine One, and the Divine One dwells in us, as us. So let me close with a short prayer called the Christed One's Prayer. Stand with me while we face the wrath. Walk with me while we blaze a path. Sit with me as we learn to share. Ascend with me into Spirit's care. Thank you so much.